Welcome to the Hello Foundation's 15-minute podcast, The Strategic Cohort, showcasing educational administrators answering 5 questions related to their current position. We talk with educational leaders across settings and across states. Our objective is to share thoughts and ideas between professionals at a time when leaders can often feel isolated. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Strategic Cohort. I'd like to start, Davey, just asking if you'd give a brief introduction of your current title and your responsibilities there.
Yeah, my name is Davey Hough. I'm the Special Ed Director for, it's called the Region 4 Developmental Pre-School System for the State of Wyoming. Region 4 is 2 counties. I'm in Teton County and Sublette County. So I oversee three sites and 3 different staffs and in 3 different varied locations.
Are they all, is it safe to say, more rural locations?
One location here in Teton County and Jackson is a year-round resort town. So we're much larger and have a lot going on here.
Yeah.
The 2 other locations, Pinedale and Big Piney, Wyoming, are very rural locations.
Okay. But your plate's full, though. That's a lot to manage.
Yes, it is.
Well, I'm curious, in the context of your current role, what would you say is your greatest challenge that you face?
I think the greatest challenge is, of course, there's always the funding issues. The way our preschool system is funded is, it's very odd. We're funded on the number of children we actively serve as of November 1st. And so the challenge is we have to find as many children as possible over the next couple of months to secure funding for the following year. I don't want to get too much into the funding aspect, but our funding is determined by our legislator, and so we have to lobby the legislature every year to see where we can go with funding. But beyond the funding, I think the greatest challenge is in the very rural areas is securing staff. In those areas, you either need to live there, want to live there, or you don't want to live there.
Well put. And how long have you been in this position so that you've been confronting that struggle?
I've been with my organization for 31 years, as a special ed director for the past 10 years.
Well, thank you. I'm impressed. I appreciate our veteran administrators simply because I think it takes so many years just to really figure out the job and what you want to see happen. So it's a real gift that you've been able to be there for so long. What kind of success do you feel you've had as a school administrator?
I think the biggest success, is I do have a very dedicated staff, so we have very little turnover. When we do have turnover, that's when it's hard to find new people to come into the organization. But I think my biggest turnaround as an administrator and success is just looking at my own style of management. And I adopted a style a couple of years ago. It's called motivational management. Is where you always secure the ownership of the staff before implementing any new programs or ideas, and that has proven to be very successful.
And that can be tough because in education, a lot of the educators can have very strong ideas of their own. Can you give an example of something that you've done to secure their motivation? Is it incentives or just generating that buy-in?
It's just generating the buy-in instead of me coming in and giving a directive, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to try. It's more you turn it around and says, I'd like to do this, I'd like to try this, what do you think? And then have them develop the model around it too. Instead of just giving a directive, it's having them part of all the decision-making processes.
Oh, that's fantastic. I can see how that would take more time, but I could also see how you definitely get the buy-in then for follow-through.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. Well, congratulations. If you had the opportunity to give advice to a new school administrator, what would you share with them?
I think it would be around that same aspect as a new administrator. It's like getting a new staff member. I mean, you're going to come in with your ideas, but you're going to have a number of staff members that are going to bring in their history, whether it be positive with past administration or negative. But I think instead of just jumping in with this is how you're going to do it, I would get the history, I would get their ideas, and then work your ideas in there, but create that ownership around new ideas.
Oh, that's a great idea. And then how would you talk about building a relationship with special education? Because sometimes I think education and certification programs and licensing programs do a great job of preparing our administrators, but unfortunately, they aren't necessarily as equipped. I don't know if it's even possible to be as equipped as you can be when it comes to special education.
And I think that's a great question because, in our field, when a new employee will come in, they may come with a medical background, or an educational background, or a clinical background, and sometimes it's really hard to get, especially if they come from a medical model, just that whole idea that we're educationally based in preschool. And I think that's the biggest challenge in special ed is just the varied backgrounds they would bring with them. And, a lot of times we finally just do have to say, and I hate to say this, that this is not the place for you. And hopefully have a mutual parting, but I've had several people with that medical and clinical mindset, and it's very difficult for them to get into in the educational field.
Yeah, I think I would totally agree with that. I've had the same experience in a much more narrow confine of speech pathology, where it's a different beast wearing a clinical hat versus an educational hat. But I'm glad that that's being put forward because that's what's best for kids.
Right.
So what trends do you see coming, or trends that are happening that you feel will impact education in the future?
I think the trend that's coming is, that now preschool is the new first grade, and we're being forced to be much more academic than we have in the past. Yeah. Generally, preschool was a very social world for kids to be in, and now it's just the stress of states being accountable, and so now kindergarten is the new first grade, and preschool is the new kindergarten, and I think that trend is going to get stronger and stronger, where the academic world is going to kind of overtake the social aspect of preschool, and that bothers me.
Yeah, that's concerning. If I take off my speech hat, I happen to be a school board member in my own local community, and we've really made an effort to try to really keep that social emotional piece in mind with our youngest kids, especially at preschool, because there's so much important development that happens there.
Right.
So I don't want to see the baby thrown out with the bathwater, I suppose. So fingers crossed that we'll come back to that. Do you think that there's a possibility that we'll go nationwide to mandatory preschool at some point?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
yes, I do. I think I don't think it's that far out, to be quite honest.
Oh, that's good news. I think that would be great for kids and families.
As long as there's still the choice there of parents to be able to keep their kids at home. I think, as long as there's a choice. I think as opposed to saying mandatory preschool, I would rather have it phrased that a preschool opportunity will be available for all children.
Oh, that's great. Do you have a lot of families that opt out of preschool?
Yes, we do.
Oh, why is that?
In our rural areas, it could be a number of things. Just getting a kid to school can be, like an hour and a half drive into wherever the nearest preschool may be. And then there are families, I think, who want to consider they're going to home preschool their child and should have that right to do that. Right.
Well, that makes sense. Well, my last question is, in a little different vein, how are students, even our littlest ones, how are they different today than when you and I went to school?
Oh, Lord. I went to school a long time ago. I think the difference is exactly what I was alluding to is I didn't go to preschool. I stayed home with my mom. That was her job, raised 4 children.
Right.
But, my kindergarten experience was it was a half-day program, and we had nap time, and we did nothing but socialize in kindergarten area. Much different now with the all-day kindergartens, and like I say, kindergarten is now the new first grade, and there's a lot of pressure, I think, on these kindergarten teachers that so much has to happen by the end of that first year that I think they're losing some of their valuable child time.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I think 20 years ago, getting the job as a kindergarten teacher was seen as, oh, that's pretty much a easier gig. And nowadays it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much you're responsible for before passing them on to the next level.
Right.
So, well, that's interesting. And I agree. I didn't have preschool either. And I think there's a lot changing. The world is a smaller place due to technology and whatnot. And I can't believe how the littlest ones in my life can manipulate technology in a way that I certainly never could have.
Oh, that's true.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Davey. This has been very helpful. So if you have any parting words of advice or suggestions for others who may be listening?
I guess just never forget this is a great, rewarding field through all the frustrations and challenges, and don't be afraid to venture into it.
Oh, that's a great tip. Thank you so much, Davey. I hope you have a great day.
Hope you do too.
Many thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Strategic Cohort. We thank all of our administrator partners for practicing quality and putting kids first. We are always seeking administrators interested in answering our 5 questions for this podcast. If you would like to be a part of the Strategic Cohort, please contact us at sharon.soliday@thehellofoundation.com. We always provide participating administrators a copy of the recording to share on their own LinkedIn profile.